Okay. We are going to have an exceptionally chilled out day today. I am always unnecessarily cheerful, but today I'm even more cheerful than usual because I'm in the front room office, which is a little bit nicer than the usual office I'm in. So today we're going to go through a bunch of notes from theory, and it feels like we've been doing reading and theory for a long time. We've got really extensive notes, but I'm just going to gloss over like, this is the main point, this is the main point, this is the main point, which isn't to say that this stuff isn't important. I'm not trying to say we're going really fast, this isn't important. I'm going kind of fast these to make sure I've got time to answer your questions. But also, these theory pieces we're looking at in user-centered design really are something of an overview. So we're getting these big chunked ideas and we're going to bring these terminologies and we're going to bring these ideas with us as we start to write CSS again tomorrow. So here we are. Oh, let me grab this for you. Here's our notes. And as always, y'all pretty please ask me any questions you've got in your heart as we go. Oh, usefully, check out what's going on up here at the top because we're going to come and talk about what this part of the website is doing later on. Let's come all the way down, deep breath, woof. We're going to come into our notes. There's so many notes. So we've got a bunch of different things here, but I'm going to do this in a sentence or two. What is user-centered design? And I will lovingly ask y'all if you have a better definition of user-centered design. For me, user-centered design means designing your web pages, your content, your interactivity. It means designing for the people you actually want to use your website. So this means thinking about who's going to use my website? What do they want to do? What's their goal? And one of the questions we had yesterday was, hey, a lot of shopping carts, and that's going to come back in our examples today. A lot of shopping carts look and feel the same when we shop online today. Is that something we want? Is that something we want to experiment? Maybe if the goal is shopping, we want to not be too creative. When building user-centered design, we have a bunch of different things we can do to get this information. We might want to use analytics to understand how users are using our websites, but really balancing, hey, I want to understand how my users are using my website with not putting in weird and creepy tracking. We're going to go really fast. Okay, we've got 3 different concepts here. We've got user requirements, user research, and testing. So user research is the big umbrella here. Yeah, user research is the research that you do to tell you about who your users are, what your users want, what they don't like, and what they love. Any kind of research that you're doing about your users is user research. Please. Privacy. Sorry, y'all are grown and y'all are going to make really good decisions on your own. But these days, so much of what we do online is tracked. When we're building our own websites and when we're building things for clients or things for our boss, sometimes we have to take work that we don't love and we don't love delivering at different points in our career. When you can, I would like to gently and lovingly encourage y'all to think about how can we preserve user privacy? How can we not be weird creeps on the internet when there's a bunch of weird, creepy things on the internet these days? Here's a term called Net Promoter Score, NPS. Right now, we're building websites for ourselves, so we don't have to worry about it too much. It sounds really fancy, but that's just a, hey, user who I'm maybe interviewing or maybe giving a survey to, 1 to 10, how much would you recommend this website to your friends? And we've all gotten surveys like this, and they're not always as useful. Other types of user research might be doing interviews, actually talking to our users or potential users before they build stuff or before we build stuff for them. Or if somebody's deleting their account or canceling their subscription, we might ask, hey, we see you want to leave. Do you want to do a little survey about this? User testing is where you gather data from users as they interact with your website or application. A/B testing is really common. A/B testing is where you have two or more, but for this example, two different versions of your website or features on your website, and you just compare, you test. I ran this new version of the website and people loved it, oof, or people hated it, or people were a little confused by it. User requirements are the sort of defined goals that your application should follow. These feel a lot like those user stories we get in our labs. And we've got a bunch of really, really good points in the chat. And Paul's just like, hey, keep in mind that anytime you're doing user research, that's a real snapshot in time. So maybe you're doing interviews with your current users. Don't forget about the people who aren't your current user. Maybe the website you're working on isn't very accessible. So you don't have current users who have different kinds of access needs. Yeah, thinking about when I'm doing this user research, who am I talking to and who am I not talking to is really useful. Dark mode, dark mode. So a lot of us have seen websites where we've got the option of light mode, and our notes in the Bad Website Club is a pretty good example of a light mode website. It's white on black, but sometimes you can choose a dark mode. When you are designing for dark mode, here's just some tips. Make sure that we're not going for too bright and intense on dark backgrounds because you do get good contrast, but it's a stressful contrast, kind of an eye strain contrast. The same as if you put dark, dark black with white text, that contrast is too high and can be really hard. Maybe a dark gray background. And when you are giving users the option to switch between light mode and dark mode, make sure that if you've got a brand team or a marketing team, that they're not going to yell at you for your colors. We're going to come on down here. Breadcrumbs. Besties, what is a breadcrumb? If you are on your notes, you could probably go all the way up to the top. I think there are some breadcrumbs on this website. Can somebody in the chat tell me what the breadcrumbs at the top of this website say? While y'all are finding that, and I'm conscious there's a bit of a delay, I will talk you through this. Breadcrumbs are a navigation aid, and they're showing your users, hey, we've got a bunch of different content on this website. Here's where you're at right now. Here's a sort of like landmark, a little visual clue of where we're going. You all can tell that Edda did the notes today as well, because she's really helpfully added a copy button for, hey, do you want to copy and paste these into it, into your editor and see how it looks? So sometimes when using breadcrumbs, people use a separator character, that greater than sign, the right angle, or / to show, hey, here's where we are. And usually breadcrumbs are at the top of the page, right below the main navigation bar. Size-wise, we want them to be big enough where you see them, but not so big that they take up a ton of space. Remember when we talked about information hierarchy? Oh gosh, is it Lucia's like, oh, wait, breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs that sort of show where you've been on the site, sort of a Hansel and Gretel reference. Oh, that's charming. I never stopped to think about that. That's really beautiful. It does feel very Hansel and Gretel. And I'm going to quickly take a deep breath because we're going to go all the way up and it's going to be a bit dizzying. Woof. Come all the way to the top to check out our breadcrumbs. And the breadcrumbs here are, hey, we're inside the spring 2026. And from there, we're in the CSS design. Folks in the chat are helpfully pointing out that it looks like I'm someplace very different. I'm just in the living room office instead of the bedroom office. And I'm very close to a bird feeder. So my apologies if you all hear some very loud squawks. I'm based in London these days, even though Birmingham is the best city in the UK. It'll be on the test, don't worry. And London has little green parrots that I guess escaped from being someone's pets a long time ago. And they're charming and they're loud. So I do apologize if you are hearing a lot of background parrots fighting. Cards. What are the best practices for designing cards? So cards are squares of information that we use to lay out. Oh gosh, hang on. Sorry about that. That we use to lay out chunks of information. These can often be used on like e-commerce. If you go to a website where you've got a bunch of products and you click on a product card and it expands it. Or maybe social media. You're on Mastodon or you're on Blue Sky, and each individual post is a card that you can click on. And here's just sort of some tips for thinking about how we design those cards. Oh, Learner really helpfully points out that we're getting to hear a lot of bird sounds today because we're learning about breadcrumbs. So, if you are building an interface, if you're building a user interface, remember a UI that has cards, we want to keep them simple. We want to make sure that folks understand what they can or can't click on. We want to make sure that media is used appropriately. If you're using images, keep them high quality, but balance, making sure they don't take up too much bandwidth to download. And color hierarchy. Make sure that folks sort of have the difference of color on the cards so they can see what's going on. What about infinite scrolls? Gosh. So these are really common on social media sites, and these are really common on shopping sites. And it's a design pattern called infinite scrolling. Yesterday, we previewed this and we talked about how in social media, sometimes they're called doom scrolling, where you get on a social media site and infinite scroll means you can just scroll down forever and ever and ever, and it'll just keep giving you more content and more content and more content. A lot of companies and a lot of projects like to design this because hmm, we often use the word sticky to say, oh, this kind of design is stickier for users. Users tend to stay with this a little longer. And I don't really love calling this like sticky design because really what we're talking about is more addictive design to say, hey, if we let people scroll forever, they'll stay longer and longer. Yeah, think about when and how do we add these? Oh gosh, learners asking, hey, when does the infinite scroll end? After a gazillion scrolls or when the memory's exhausted? So generally, the infinite scroll will end if you run out of content. So it's usually designed to not run out if it's a big enough piece of social media or content. And Mel's asking, well, doesn't this infinite scroll make the web page slower the more it's loading? We'll talk about lazy loading and what we keep and throw away, but generally speaking, websites and social media sites that use this design pattern are designed to be really lightweight. So they're not keeping everything in this infinite scroll loaded on your screen. Once you scroll past something far enough, it'll get rid of that and say, hey, we're not paying attention to that anymore, which is why it's often difficult on social media to find something, scroll down a bit, and then you can't find that again because it's gone away. Think about adding a load more button so folks have to click. Oh, so instead of just infinite scrolling, we give users more control and say, hey, did you want more of this thing? And not just give them more and more and more. Geddes makes a real good point to say, Geddes is saying, I've heard that these infinite scrolls are kind of modeled after like slot machines and gambling. There's a lot of writing about these design patterns, and they are, yeah, often kind of designed for gambling style or addiction style processes. Adding a back to the top button that lets folks head back to get content they saw and maybe lost. And add a loading indicator. So saying, hey, if it is taking a little bit longer to load new content, giving users the indicator that's saying, hey, 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 This is taking a second, but also making sure that the header and footer content stays available. What about modals? What's a modal? A modal is a little pop-up window, and anybody who was using the web back in the good old bad old days in the sort of 90s and 2000s remembers a bunch of pop-up windows. It's usually not like pop-up ads, but these can be sort of a boop, like an error message. Hey, you didn't fill out this form. Or did you want to exit this page? These are little pop-up windows. And usually when it pops up, it blurs the content that had been on the screen to pull your attention to this modal. We've got some really, really good tips here saying, hey, these usually have a call to action button. You should always include a way to close these, but also think about when you use these. So Mom makes a good point. Mel says, as a user, I hate how often modals are used. I don't get to see the content unless I agree to cookies. That's usually a legal requirement. Or I agree to sign it. So yeah, think about where and how we're asking people, what we're asking people for with these modals, not just how often we're using these modals. What about best practices for forms and registration and setup? If you've got a form with a bunch of information, thinking about letting folks know how far they are through this. It's great to have these progress indicators, but where we can, keep them simple, make sure users can go back to previous steps, and have clear sort of chunks, like separate out that information. Sorry, if you hear me giggling, it's because there are little birds out my window, but also one of my most horrible cats was in my lap, but is now trying to get between me and you, is just absolutely desperate for me to give her a bird, and that will never happen. We had some questions about this yesterday. Hey, shopping carts all kind of look alike when we're buying stuff on the internet these days. Is that how we want to do things? And I keep coming back to this question because I really liked this question. When is creativity not what we want? And for shopping carts, we want to make sure that when people are shopping, they can see where the shopping cart is. And these days, usually, a shopping cart is up in the upper right-hand corner of a page. It should be clickable. So really this is saying, hey, these days we've got some conventions about how these shopping carts look and where they're located. Sticking with these conventions can make it easier. Oh, here's a really good question. Dennis is asking, was there best practice in terms of how much time or how long these forms we should make are? So I don't think there's a specific best practice. This is really, really good. This is a really useful question, but really thinking about it in terms of what the form is and what you're asking. If you're creating a survey to say, hey, did you like my website? You probably don't want that to have 600 questions. But if you're designing a form for maybe a job application, or hopefully not 600, but maybe that will have more, maybe that'll take quite a bit more time. Yeah, so really thinking about how and where do we design these forms too? Makes sense. And yeah, there are a lot of forms that have a time limit that log you out automatically for security. Miss Baby, please. My apologies. My worst cat, who's definitely not my favorite. So back to shopping carts. Make it really clear. So the same way you all wouldn't want to create sort of addictive social media experiences, y'all wouldn't want to accidentally design shopping carts or design online shopping experiences where folks can't tell how many of an item they're buying. You don't want people to accidentally buy two more. And make sure it's easy for people to remove something from their cart and change the number. So say, hey, I don't want to accidentally buy 17 boxes of ice cream. Maybe. How do I clearly see the quantity and change it or remove it? Do you know what? These days, having it look like a lot of other shopping carts is probably a good idea. There are shopping cart icons, and people have gotten used to them. Here we've got the example from the Free Code Camp lesson page, which y'all can have a play with if you like. Oh, and please do ask any questions as we go if it's useful. I know we're just zipping through quite a bit of theory, mostly because these are sort of big chunky overviews that we want to be softly thinking about as we go back into actually writing CSS tomorrow. Oh, we're not going to look at this together. I'm going to let y'all look at this and make sure to do better than I do and link your CSS when you have a look at these. What is progressive disclosure? I really like progressive disclosure because it sounds like a very legal concept, doesn't it? With progressive disclosure, we show users the information that's important for them and only them. Oh, that's such a good question. Do you know what, Euladill? I'm going to come right back to that. Thank you. Here, it's helpful reducing cognitive load. So cognitive load is a cognitive psychology concept, and cognitive load is sort of the total weight, the total amount of processing it takes any person to hold all of the different things they have in their head for a given task. When you make sure that you only show users the content that's relevant for them, it means that they don't have to keep a bunch of information that's not important to them. So here, when we're thinking about progressive disclosure, making sure that users do have the information they need, that they could go and get more information if they wanted to. There's a more details button maybe, or see more, but we're not drowning people in information they don't need. Mel says this way better than I could. Mel's like, oh, so progressive disclosures about respecting a user's time, respecting a user's focus. I really love this. Thank you. And Euladil is asking a really good point to say, hey, we've talked about, really briefly, not designing unethical patterns. So not designing stuff that feels like doom scrolling and feels addictive. Not designing shopping carts where folks accidentally buy more. And these are concepts called dark patterns. Dark patterns are things that I would like y'all to never do. But maybe your first job will be someplace that sucks. If you are asked to design dark patterns, please do as rubbish a job as you think you can get away with. Dark patterns are any kind of design approach that tries to trick or manipulate someone. So if you've got a shopping cart and it's really easy to add items, but intentionally difficult to delete them, that would be a dark pattern. Or you've given a website your email address because you've bought something from them, but by default, it's also checked the box to say, send me marketing materials. Mel's got a really good question here, and it's a hard question. Mel's asking, hey, let's say I'm working a job where I'm being asked to do something unethical. Maybe it's design a web page in a way that doesn't have good accessibility, or I'm asked to build dark patterns into my work. What can you do? And this can be really, really hard because this is very different in different countries, in different working cultures, and even in different stages in your career. Often when we're more junior, we can feel like we have less power in a job, and that can be very true. So yeah, doing a bad job, pushing back against this, saying, hey, I don't want to do this. Hey, this isn't ethical. Or hey, this might be even illegal where we are, can be really, really good ways to approach this. When and how you can. I am a very specific old lady and I love a union. So being able to push back with your colleagues together and say, if you say as one person, I won't do this, gosh, it's real easy to put yourself at risk, huh? But if 60% of you are saying, we won't do this. It leaves you a bit more space to bargain collectively. Let's talk about deferred and lazy registration. Lazy registration is the name of a design pattern. And we've heard this a couple different times. It's a design pattern. So infinite scrollage is a design pattern. Lazy registration is a design pattern. This is an approach to designing based around these different philosophies. And lazy registration lets users browse and interact with content without registering for an account. I love this. And this could be something that's good for businesses as well. If you have a shopping cart on a site, maybe users can add things to their shopping cart, but they don't have to register or log in until they check out. This lowers the friction to start shopping for your users, and it means that they don't have to think about this right away. YouTube's another really good, or PeerTube if you're using that. You can view videos and search without signing in, but for features like commenting, you need to register or sign in. Haha. I think this is the very last one. No, two more. So, what are design briefs? A design brief is a document that talks about the goals and the requirements of a project. Usually, if you're working for a client, so let's say you're a freelance web developer, and don't forget, even if you're building websites and you're not getting paid for them, or if you're not getting paid in cash, let's say your sister-in-law has a really nice bakery and you're helping her build a website and she's paying you in cake. That is still professional experience, and you better put that in your, gosh, I'm not the boss of you. Please consider putting work like that in your portfolio and putting work like that in your resume or CV. These design briefs can be something you write with a client or something a client gives you. And it can be the overview of the project. Say, oh, this is my sister's bakery. It's called Cookie Corp. It's not my, I don't have a sister-in-law who has a bakery. Here's the company details, the mission. Oh, here's the products we're going to list. Here's the goal of this website. We want to make a marketing website so more people can find this bakery. Who's the target audience? The target audience are people who like fancy cookies. And this one's really important, the project scope. So the deliverables are all of the things you're going to make and give them. So this could be, I'm going to build a website that has a homepage, a contact page, and a page for products showing pictures and descriptions of popular baked goods that Cookie Corp makes. And hella important, you're also going to make sure this includes a timeline, because folks love to say, oh yeah, and have this done tomorrow. You're going to define a timeline. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make a website with 4 pages and it's going to take 3 months or 2 weeks, however. Make sure, I'm not the boss of y'all, but make sure you think about in this project and in your contracts if you're a freelancer, how many revisions, how many times you're going to have people be able to come back and say, fix this, change that. Because otherwise, you're going to be going back and fixing it again and again. And a budget. So when we first start out, sometimes we make websites for our friends for free or websites for our sister-in-law for cookies. But we live in a place where cookies don't pay the rent. I'm really excited when y'all can get paid. Make sure you define that in your contract and in your defined brief. Once you get that written and everybody agrees, that's when you start working, right? Don't be like, oh yeah, we'll work out the money later. Start working now. Absolutely not. Oh, this is a really important question. And get us to saying, so design briefs in some instances can be like contracts, which can protect the designer and the client. Design briefs and contracts will often have some of the same material in them, but it's make sure that you have both a design brief, here's what we're going to build, here's the details, and a contract. Hi, I'm your client. I'm going to pay you this amount of money for this amount of work and these deliverables. It's real easy your first couple of times to Oh, we won't do a contract. We'll just a handshake. You know what? This is a friend of a friend. They'll definitely pay me. I have myself trusted too much and didn't really get paid. So really, really importantly, if you're doing freelance work, looking for a contract can be really important as well. What are some really important design tools that you might need to know about as a developer? There are vector-based design tools and prototyping tools. Okay, these are sort of types. Yeah. So some common design tools are Figma, and this is a tool in your browser, sort of the Photoshop of its day, if you're my age. These are prototyping often, it's vector-based. More than one person can log in and move it around. Sketch is also a really common one available for Mac OS users. Adobe is a vector-based design and prototyping tool, and it is expensive, y'all. And Canva is also pretty popular for templates. I don't do a ton of design, so I will lovingly let y'all explore these on your own. Remember that if you're looking for tools like this and they're super duper expensive or hard to use, search for open source and then the name of you can always search for free and open source and then the name of the tool. So like open source Figma, open source Sketch, and free and open source are the keywords that are going to make your life better. We have hustled through this at great speed. These are so many topics and we went really fast. And the reason we went really fast is y'all have, I'm so sorry, a little tiny bit more reading to do as solo work for tomorrow. But this reading is going to be significantly more actual code focused, and it'll let us get back to writing some CSS. So thank you for taking a 2-day little vacation to start thinking about design principles, thinking about user centered design, thinking about user research. And we will tomorrow start going back to writing CSS with some of these soft ideas sitting right on the top of our head. So we learned some design terms. We learned terms, and I was really excited that we learned the term dark patterns, which wasn't in here, but I really like. Infinite scroll, we learned the term for design patterns themselves. We learned about some fundamentals of user interface design. We learned about some best practices, and at least we learned the names of some of these common design tools you might see. Let's see if we've got any questions I've missed, and y'all go ahead and hit me up in here. Yeah. Oh. I am not seeing anything right off the top of my head, but that's super okay. Let's look at what I'm going to lovingly and gently ask you to see if you can't sort for tomorrow. And tomorrow, gosh, we look how much this was. Oof, oof, oof. I know, this is so much reading. Y'all are wonderful. I'm sorry. A little bit more reading, a little bit more reading. I'm gonna ask you to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 more. Admittedly, very short. These are much, much shorter. Check them out. Check them out. I promise. Wait, am I lying? Cool, cool. So these are pretty short and they're significantly more code focused. So less, here's a new term, here's a new concept, and more, hey, check this out. Here's what a VH and VW unit means. And that makes us all put, we've done some of this without talking about it. We've talked about view width, view height, and pixel to preview these. And we're going to start talking about them in terms of the theory. What are these doing? What do these mean? How is view width and view height different than pixel? And the spoiler here is view width and view height are relative, and pixels are pretty absolute units of measurement. And after we do some of that, gosh, I'm going to ask you solo to Start working on the build an event flyer page. Yeah, I'd be surprised if this is something you got. If you could do all this reading and that before tomorrow, you are faster than I am. Also, there's the review. And if you can make sure, please, 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 I don't think any of y'all, I think the idea of cheating is a little bit weird because y'all are grown. Your boss or your teacher isn't making you take this class, I don't think. So, really, when we quiz ourselves, we're looking for, did I remember this? Did I understand what I'm being asked? But still, make sure that you do this quiz on your own, not with other people, if that's okay. Stunning. This was the fastest tour of these concepts, mostly because I don't think it's that exciting to hear me read y'all's notes back to you. I will lovingly and excitedly let you go for today, and hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow with fewer bird sounds, but just as much excitement in my heart. I'm going to let all y'all go, and please have the easiest rest of the day as you possibly can. Bye, team.